You are listening to Smart Women's Dating Podcast, episode number 11. Welcome to Smart Women's Dating Podcast. I am your host, certified life coach Lærke Nielsen, and I help smart, independent women attract the love they deeply desire without having to chase or settle. This podcast will give you the mindset, tools, and insights you need to finally crack the code to your love life. Are you ready? Then let's go. Welcome back to Smart Women's Dating Podcast. How are you all doing? I am actually doing quite great when it comes to creating this podcast because this weekend I hit an important milestone. I have now 1,000 downloads of the podcast. And honestly, I don't even know if that's a lot. I have no idea what is the normal number of downloads. But I feel so grateful because we are only less than 2 months in. So I want to give a big thank you to all of you who are listening. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. And creating this podcast has been a dream of mine for such a long time, and I am only getting started. So today I am so excited to bring you this episode because I know it's going to inspire a lot of you out there, especially those of you who feel drained and hopeless after years of unsuccessful dating. And you will definitely want to listen if you have the belief that your kind of man is not to be found in a dating app. Because in this episode, I'm having a conversation with a client of mine, Beth, who, when she found me, had been dating on off for over 10 years, and who, in less than 3 months, met the man of her dreams that she today is in a committed and very loving relationship with. And the cherry on the cake, she met him on Bumble. Now, this can be your reality too. This story shows that it's just a question of getting the right support and finding out exactly what's getting in your way of attracting love, which is often something that is hidden to ourselves and very individual. And that's why it's so powerful to have a one-to-one coach who can help you challenge and change old beliefs and patterns, basically remove the blocks that prevent you from finding love. And I, of course, always love it when my clients find love, and especially when I can say it doesn't matter how many years you've tried without success, it can happen for you as well. It's never too late to meet the love of your life. So before we dive into this conversation, I just want to clarify that we can, of course, only scratch the surface in this approximately 20 minutes. So it will be with the focus on her story and the result that she created, which is finding her man. And I also want to say that as a coach, this is my priority. This is what I commit to when working with a client, helping you get the result. And this is one of the ways in which, in my experience, coaching is different from therapy. I focus on getting my clients results or teach them the skills that they need to master to get the results within a certain time frame. And I work with a program that is designed to help you attract love either in those 5 months that we work together or within less than a year. And I will do whatever it takes, and that looks different from client to client, and I support each of them in a different way based on their needs. So with some, we do a lot of inner work and mindset work, and with others, it's more a question of the practical aspect of connecting in the dating apps and staying committed when it feels hopeless. And I help them by motivating them to keep going and to be selective in who they choose to spend their time on. So if you, after hearing this episode, think it could be something for you, here's how you can get in touch with me. It's very simple. You just book a consultation call, which is a 45 minutes free call on Zoom. And here we talk about your story and your unique challenges, what you have tried so far and why you haven't gotten the results yet. And I'll tell you how I can help you, and you get to decide if you think it's a good fit and if you want me to support you in attracting your dream partner. And to book a call, you just go to the link in the show notes or on my website, lærkethelovecoach.com, Laerke. So let's dive into it. Enjoy. Maybe you want to start by telling me a little bit about your dating life in the years that went up to when we started working. Because I remember when we had our very first call, you told me that you had 14 years of dating disaster. And it sounded very dramatic. So I'm curious to hear a little bit about what was it that you tried and what were the results?
Well, they were disastrous years, and I think I wasn't sure what I was looking for. In the early years, I wasn't really looking for a relationship because I was untangling divorce, raising kids, but I wanted companionship, and I didn't even find good companionship. And I think it's because I wasn't discerning enough. I would accept any date. I didn't hone in on only the right dates.
No. You accepted all dates, basically anyone who wanted to go on a date with you.
Anyone who asked, I would say
Yeah.
yes. That needed to change.
Yeah, because how did that leave you feeling then? What was the experience?
Exhausted, like
Yeah,
emotionally exhausted. How many
yeah.
times can you tell your story to somebody? How many, and then you hear their story and you're not interested in them, and you have to pretend that you're interested in their story.
Mm.
And then you have to untangle it by saying, I don't want to see you again.
Mm. And why were they not interesting to you?
In hindsight, I realized none of them were equal partners, financial equals, maybe not even education equals.
Mm.
And there was just no chance that we would ever come together. And yet I still wasted time on it.
How did you meet them? Was it in a dating app or how did that come
Yeah,
along?
Match.com.
And I remember you talked about a matchmaker as well.
Oh, yeah, I hired one of those, and that was also a epic fail. A lot of money for
Okay.
absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, I met worse guys through that professional dating site or dating matchmaker, whatever the hell she was, than I did on Match.com.
So that's a long time where you kept trying and you didn't get the result that you wanted. And then at some point you reached out to me, and I'm really impressed that you still kept the hope and you still had the dream and you listened to that. But what was it that made you think I'm going to try working with a coach?
Well, I had moved, and so I was in a new environment. I wanted to meet people. And my attitude at the time was, even if I meet somebody that I'm not willing to date, maybe he could be a friend in this new environment that I'm now living in. I was like one last ditch effort because at that point I was just like, I'm prepared to live the rest of my life alone. I
Yeah.
could support myself. I've done well enough to be in that place. I'm secure enough in myself. And I was looking for an equal partner. But what I realized is in order to find an equal partner, you have to be an equal partner. So I shifted my attitude a little bit to say, I'm going to be the partner to him that I want him to be to me.
Yeah. That is so good. So if we are to talk about your growth areas, so setting
Mhm,
boundaries was one of them. And we also talked about people pleasing and just
mhm,
basically just
mhm,
saying no. Do you remember some of the ways it showed up in your
mhm.
dating life, this process of learning to set boundaries and say no?
Well, the first thing was I would never, after I met you, I would never go on a first date for more than an hour.
Because
And
what happened
even
in the past?
in the past, it was like, okay, until the date ends, and it could be 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm still people pleasing because
Yeah,
I didn't want to say, gotta go. So that was one of them. And so when I started dating in this new environment that I'm living in now, it was always like, okay, 1 hour, I'll meet you for a cocktail or I'll meet you for a lunch. And even if I was free after that, I still cut it off at 1 hour. And so that was an important boundary. If I didn't like what I saw in that first hour, then I came up with the line, pleasure meeting you. Sorry, I don't think we're the right fit to continue. I wish you the best of success.
yeah,
So that was a huge boundary for me too, because I wasn't people pleasing, except for people pleasing me.
yeah. That's what we want.
And I wasn't as emotionally drained dating as I
No.
had been all the years previous.
Because saying yes to a date with basically anyone who asks and going on for all the time that they want, if they want to stay on the date for hours and hours and hours, is super draining in the end.
Yeah, you get nowhere because you know he's not the right person. So it's just a time filler. It's just a waste of time, actually.
Why do you think you didn't do this in the past? What was holding you back from just saying, I gotta go now?
I think I was too afraid to be mean to somebody. I didn't want to be mean, you know? And in hindsight, I realized it's not being mean, it's just being truthful. And I'd rather be truthful than tell a lie. And not that I was telling a lie, but my actions were telling a lie because I
Yeah.
really didn't want to be there.
And in the end, you were actually being mean to yourself when you
Yes.
when you agreed to do all the things. Yeah.
Yes. So once I changed that attitude, it became more refreshing to date. And it
Yeah.
didn't seem as much of a drain. It was actually something I looked forward to. Now, it
That's so
certainly helped
cool.
that I met a man I wanted to be with.
Yeah. And even when you met him, you also had a short first date.
1 hour. And
Oh.
he wanted to stay and have dinner. And I said, so sorry, I already have plans. I thought this was
Yeah.
just going to be a cocktail. I
Yeah.
hope you'll call me again.
Because then, and I love that because then we really can look forward to the next date. So
Mhm.
staying with that boundary that is 1 hour, and then if it's a
Yes.
bad date, yeah, then you are relieved to only have done 1 hour, and then if it's a good date, you can look forward to continuing the conversation. I also think that we talked a lot about over-functioning, where we as strong, independent women, and you are a successful businesswoman, you have your own business, we can get into this energy where we take care of a lot of things, and we also are available for men that need us to take care of things and organize and plan. And there I've seen a shift in you as well. How
Yes.
you experienced that?
Well, one of the reasons my marriage failed was because I enabled everything. And I enabled everything because I'm so damn capable.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
And I'm very conscientious about not enabling anymore. And I am very giving and generous and want to take care because I'm not enabling, I'm receiving that back as well now. I never received it back before. So I always felt taken advantage of.
yeah.
And I don't feel that way now.
That's a big shift from being this like almost overgiving person, over functioning, and then allowing yourself to, even if you can, take care of a lot of things and let go of it and let him step in. He wants to do a lot of things for you.
He does. So, and it's nice to be on the receiving end for a change.
Yeah. That's so good. You deserve that. So, were there any surprises, like anything that surprised you in implementing those shifts?
Well, what surprised me is it took me so damn long to figure it out.
Your motivation was really at the maximum and you were open to learn. That's something I noticed as well, because you asked a lot of questions and you took all my answers and implemented basically everything. I mean, you're such a good student. you, you followed all my guidance. And I think it was because you were really ready to make some changes now. So you can say it took a long time, but you met someone already in less than 3 months after we started working
Yeah,
together.
I did.
And one of the things that I really love about that is that you were not the most positive person around the dating apps, to say it mildly.
You know
You
how
were
I
not
fought
really,
you every step of the way on those stupid apps.
and you had particularly this idea that your kind of man would not be someone on the app.
Mhm.
And then where did you meet the man that you're dating now?
I met him on Bumble, and it shocked me that I met him on Bumble. And I think I was only on Bumble for a week or two when I met him. And in fact, I was just doing the trial, and that's how I met him.
Okay. When did you know that he was someone really interesting for you?
Well, even before I met him, just communicating on Bumble, he was very complimentary and he was witty. He had very witty sense of humor. And it wasn't like serious text messages, but it was like funny quips that made me want to know more.
Mm.
And so I think we went back and forth for about 3 or 4 days with text messages
Mm.
on Bumble before we actually met. And then once we met, I don't know, I just had this feeling.
Yeah,
I can't describe, but it was like, he's a possibility.
yeah,
And then by the second date, I was like, no, he's more than a possibility. He's a strong possibility.
yeah. And this is really fast. I mean, it's not always like this. We don't always get this feeling on the first date. He's clearly a man who's different from the men that you met in the past. But you
Yes.
did had a few good dates before you met him. I remember you met a few men that were quite different from those that you had
Mhm.
spent most of the time with in the past. And I think that might also have opened you up to see maybe it is possible for me.
I agree with that. I was much more discerning about who I would communicate with, number one, and who I would actually meet.
Yeah.
And you helped me with that by forcing me to do those video chats before the first date.
Yeah. Did I force you to do that?
And something else that was really attractive to me about my new man was he didn't lie about his age. He didn't lie about his experiences. He didn't lie about the school he went to. And that had been my previous experience with so many men on Bumble. I'd get to a date and they'd say, oh, I know the profile says 66, but I'm really 72. I'm young. I'm in good shape. I want to date somebody younger than me.
Yeah.
And so that's why I put that down. And I thought to myself, that is the most selfish damn thing, because what if that's not what I want?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have
Yeah.
clicked on you if I'd known the truth. So it was attractive to me that he was very transparent.
Yeah.
And it was attractive because I'm transparent, so I expect the same.
Yes. I mean, it's not a good start in a relationship if the first you see is a lie, that they're lying about their age.
Well, how do you base a relationship on a shaky foundation?
Yeah.
And a lie is a shaky foundation. It's not who I am, and it's not who I want to be with. So it goes to character. So
Yeah.
I think after meeting you and working with you, I was more focused on finding character versus filling my time.
Yeah. And because, of course, you can fill your time yourself. No need to find a man to just fill out your time. We want to find the right man for you. And just to finish up the thing with the video dates, I've seen this with other clients as well, that men, they sometimes lie about their age. And then when you meet them on the date, you realize they're 10 years older than you thought. And the video date is just like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you get the
Real
clarity.
picture.
Is he really the person? Yeah. Is he really the age? Is he the person he says he is? So that can, in some cases, save a lot of time and regret and frustration.
Yeah.
And so now you met someone that you're quite serious with. You
We
told
are,
me that you have feelings for him that you didn't have for other men in the past.
it's so true. And we've been dating now, I think 4 months.
Mhm.
Doesn't seem like a long time, but we're at the point where we're talking about our future together.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, yeah. One thing that I also wanted to emphasize here is that when you started dating him, it wasn't, even though you felt quite interested in him and you felt that he's a really great opportunity, you didn't see each other like 5 times a week. You took your time to really get to know him, because we can discuss how long does it actually take to get to know someone. It takes time to get to know them really and see how do they respond in different situations, and does he continue being this amazing as he was in the beginning.
Well, so far, and I'm going to be very optimistic. I hope this never ends.
Yeah. So you're planning vacations and you're planning a future together. You met each
We are.
other's family.
He hasn't met my kids yet, but I met one of his kids
Yeah.
and his son. And I even love his son.
Yeah, that's good.
And I'm excited to introduce him to my kids. They're just all over the country right now.
And how do you experience the relationship dynamics between you? Now, you already talked a little bit about him taking charge, taking lead.
He definitely takes charge. And this is something different than what I dated in the past.
Yeah.
I always had my masculine energy on because that's just who I am. Give me a task and it's accomplished, period.
Mm.
He's very task oriented as well. So when it's important to him, it's accomplished immediately. But he's very authentic about it and very sincere. 2 words that come to mind, or 2 adjectives that come to mind, are kind and generous. He's generous with his time. He's generous with his money. He's generous with his feelings. I've never experienced that before. So I feel we're very equal in that way as well.
And it's interesting because it's typical that we are very much in our masculine energy when we are running a business or doing something in career. So I'm curious to hear how you have experienced the shift. Was it difficult for you to shift and let him take charge?
It was definitely a very conscious effort to say to myself, Beth, shut your mouth. Let him talk.
Yeah. I remember we talked about this question about exclusivity, and we talked about whether you were to bring it up or not. And I told you, wait a little bit, let us see what he says.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
So he brought it up. I didn't have to bring it up.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it's this night I'm talking about that was so romantic, where he told me he loved me for the first time. He brought up the exclusivity piece.
Yeah.
And it was just the conversation just flowed. I didn't have to plan to say it. What am I going to say? How am I going to say it? And so it just made me feel like we were both on the same page.
Yes.
And after that evening, or we spent the weekend together, after that weekend, I wrote him a note thanking him for his generosity of time, because
Mm-hmm.
committing to share your time with somebody is probably the most precious gift you could give somebody.
That's so
And
true. Yeah.
I wrote this in my note to him, that how much I appreciate the undivided attention he gave me that weekend, because that was the best expression of his love, more so than words.
Mm.
And today he still tells me he reads that note every day.
Okay. Oh, that's so sweet. But it's true, because time is the one thing we can't buy more of. We have what we have. It is a big gift.
Yes, and it's the most precious gift I give my kids.
Yeah.
And it's the most precious gift I expect from them, is when I get to spend quality time with them. And why wouldn't I want the same in a partner?
So this all sounds super nice and fantastic. And I remember in the beginning when you just met him, every time we had a session, I was so excited for you, because I know you've gone through a lot to get there. And even in the beginning, when we worked together, you had some dates with the really weird experiences. You told me about a guy who wanted to share a bowl of soup, for instance, which
Oh my
I'm
God.
still laughing about. That's not something you normally share on a date. So you had a lot of these, or a number of these dates, and you still kept going. And that, I think, is really admirable. And you were not always 100% convinced that the app would be a place to meet a man, but you still kept going. You gave it a chance.
I did, but
Yes.
I was not at all convinced. I was the most skeptical person.
Yeah, that's true.
So
And
thank
but
you for pushing me.
yeah, of course. But I think that you, even if you were skeptical, you were open to being wrong. I think that what is required is that we are willing to take action, and we are open to seeing that we might be wrong in our negative beliefs. So in the end here, I just want to ask you, if you were to give an advice to your past self, or a woman who's been dating for years and feel hopeless and feel she's not meeting a good man and feel drained and exhausted, what kind of advice would you give to her?
The first advice is self-reflection. Like, just be confident, secure self first,
Yeah.
and then look for equal. And if it's not there, don't waste your time.
Yeah. So basically, it's about setting standards and sticking
And
to them.
boundaries.
And then also, I hear a lot of women say that they want to meet love naturally, so to speak. They want it just to happen naturally. And so they can't imagine working with a coach, for instance, or doing something on purpose to attract love. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm probably the wrong person to ask that, because I've been using life coaches, business coaches all over the world since 2007. And what I became really good at in those years was identifying what I needed from each coach. Again, some were personal coaches, some were business coaches. You were my first and only dating coach, and my last dating coach. But I always think that you could get a fresh perspective out there from others if you're open and receptive to receiving. And so I've always been very clear and open and receptive to working with coaches. It's the one advice I give my kids all the time. And I think I'll work with coaches the rest of my life.
Yeah. I love that. And I really think, well, of course, I'm biased here, but I really think it's a smart move to seek the right support when we need it to move on, and to try
Yeah.
to do things differently to create different results. You found big love, and you have a beautiful future laying in front of you with lots of great experiences.
And I'm excited about it
Yeah, me
and
too.
committed to it.
I'm excited for you.
Well, thank you
So,
so much for everything you did for me.
well, you're welcome. And I want to thank you for joining here for this little chat. And I'm quite sure that there's a lot of women out there who feel inspired by your story.
I hope
So
so.
thank you so much. seriously, I am so excited for Beth and just this overall message that her story carries. Never give up. You can find love regardless of how many years you've tried, and you might be much closer to the goal than you think. So after doing this interview, I realized that a few things were a bit implicit. For instance, it might seem like she only went on the apps for 1 to 2 weeks before she met someone, but here I want to say she actually was already dating in another platform. And that's where she had some of the not so great experiences, such as the man who ordered a bowl of soup with 2 spoons to share. Yes, those are just some of the experiences you get as a bonus. And that might feel like evidence that is hopeless, but at some point, I promise you, you're going to be able to laugh about it. So, I wanted to sum up what I call the success factors, what I as a coach see as reasons why Beth got the results she wanted from dating. She decided to seek support and she didn't tell herself that it's not natural or that she's supposed to just find love automatically. She took action and signed up for an app and went on dates even when she didn't feel convinced that it would work. And she asked questions and asked for support and she followed the guidance and she kept going and didn't let the bad dates kick her out of the game. And some of the things we worked on are things that are relevant for a lot of women. First of all, getting clear on what she was looking for and not spending time on anyone who was obviously outside of this. And we can't always tell just from a profile, of course, but once you start chatting with someone and you have a video date and you maybe even meet them in person, you start to get a feeling of whether they are completely outside of what you're looking for or they potentially could be a possibility or even a strong possibility. The second thing we worked on was setting boundaries to protect her energy. And this is really important. You want to be able to enjoy dating and not feel like it's draining, and I almost cannot imagine going on one more date. And the third thing was stop the people pleasing. Be honest and say when you don't want to go on another date with a person. Just let them know that this doesn't feel like a romantic fit for you. It doesn't feel like the right connection. And finally, what we worked on was leaning back and stop the overfunctioning. And this is basically leaning into the feminine energy instead of being always the one who's planning, organizing, and giving, allowing the man to take action and let him come to you and allow yourself to receive. So results can come quickly, especially if you are motivated to do the shift and you take the action. So if you are sitting out there now and thinking that you would like to meet a wonderful man who invites you out and wants to prioritize you in his life, who adores you and wants to make future plans with you, but you're not really sure this can happen to you, then here's what I want you to think about. What if it can? What if now is your time? And what if everything works out better than you think? Can you allow yourself not to go out there so he can find you? What do you have to lose by doing it? And what do you have to lose by not doing it? You know where to find me. There's a link in the show notes and on lærkethelovecoach.com. And I'll be back in a week from now. Have a beautiful week. If you like what you're hearing on this podcast and you want to get support from a coach on your love journey, I invite you to book a free consult call with me. You will find the link in the show notes. And also, don't forget to subscribe, and I would love it if you would rate and review this podcast, and then you'll also help other women find it.